The 2022 NFL Draft was one of the biggest in Kansas City Chiefs history, and no, not because they needed to go get a transformational player like when they moved up 17 spots in 2017 to go get Patrick Mahomes. But when you consider the, so to speak, crossroads that the Chiefs are at right now, they really had to hit on what was a very deep draft class, or at least deep at several positions that were major needs. Consider the facts here with where the Chiefs are at this point in time. Yes, they've still got the guy in Patrick Mahomes leading the offense, leading the team. You've got a future Hall of Fame coach. You've had a wild amount of success recently, and you've still got plenty of talent. One of the best offensive lines in the NFL. You've got a linebacker core on defense that looks like it is emerging into one of the better ones in the league. You've got a great coaching staff, offensive line, quarterback. You've got all of these great things. Hell, throw in Travis Kelce too. He's older, but you've still got him. He's still a great weapon. But there are plenty of other areas with some deficiencies for this Chiefs team. They had to hit on this draft. They had to find ways to strengthen the defense, not just now, but in the near future as well. They had to find at least one more new pass catcher. And when you consider all of those different facts, you have to consider this Kansas City Chiefs 2022 NFL Draft to be a total success. Yes, there are things that maybe I don't like or you don't like about this class for one reason or another, whether it's a specific player, maybe it's not addressing one position quite enough, whatever it may be. But when you consider need, when you consider value, when you consider just the number of picks the Chiefs had to try to rebuild and retool this roster, I don't know how you could look at this as anything other than a huge win for Brett Veach, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, of course, draft grades within 72 hours after the draft is completed are pretty much a fool's errand, especially if you're the type, or your website is the type, that likes to give out letter grades and make these big bombastic claims about this player is going to be great, this player is going to be terrible, this class sucks, this class is the greatest of all time. We don't know. These guys have never played in an NFL game before. But what we do know is that we can grade based on need, that we can grade based on process, and we can grade based on just what we know of these players from their days playing college football. And when you consider all those factors together, this is a big win for the Kansas City Chiefs. They went into the draft with three major needs. They needed edge help, they needed cornerback help, and they needed wide receiver help. And what did they do with their first three picks? They got a corner, they got an edge, and they got a wide receiver. Those were your three biggest needs, and the process by which they went and got them, honestly, I think you have to be very happy with all of those selections. And by saying that, I'm keeping in mind the fact that not only did the Chiefs have a ton of picks, but they were, one, able to wheel and deal, move around, get into the right spot to get these guys, but two, they were able to get them for great value in a lot of spots. According to Pro Football Focus, 5 of the top 7 picks for the Chiefs in the 22 draft ended up being value picks based on their big board. Now, that's not the be-all, end-all. Let's not get that mistaken. But that does show you that a lot of people who are very football smart thought these were good players who would go earlier than they did, and the Chiefs were still able to snag them. And they got some really good players while they were able to do that. So here are a few of my favorite picks that the Chiefs were able to make during this draft. And let's start in the first round with Trent McDuffie, the cornerback from Washington. Now, they did have to move up to get him. They had to move 8 spots, but we know Brett Veach is not scared to move up. In fact, every single draft, he has moved up in the draft since he took over as general manager following the 2017 selection process. McDuffie is a day one caliber starter for this Chiefs team. He is physical. He is big. He is a willing tackler and plays with an aggressive style. That's something this Chiefs defense loves. That is something that defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo loves. So to me, McDuffie's a great fit. The most amazing part about this pick is that the Chiefs not only traded up, but they traded up for a cornerback who up until this point, they've never, under the Veach regime, shown that they really value all that much, that they're willing to spend much on, whether in terms of pure money, pure dollars, or in terms of draft capital. But I'm a huge fan of going and getting your guy if you think they are the best fit for your team or the most possible talent you can add. The Chiefs saw that in Trent McDuffie. They moved up. They got him. I love the trade. I love the fit. I think the first overall pick for the Chiefs, number 21 overall in the draft, was a huge win for this front office. Almost exactly one round after the Chiefs went out and got McDuffie, they traded back in the middle of the second round and ended up with Skye Moore, the wide receiver from Western Michigan, another one of my favorite picks. Now, Moore was an absolute stud at Western Michigan, a school that has produced plenty of quality wide receivers in the NFL in the past. He had 95 catches in his final year with the Broncos, over 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. He is a certified weapon. He's a great route runner, and he's got 4.4 speed as well. So he is going to tear up defenses, in my estimation, especially underneath, but he can be a deep ball weapon as well. The most impressive part about this pick, though, is that when he was selected 54th overall, that's 4 spots back of where the Chiefs were originally supposed to pick. Brett Veach, for as much as he likes to trade up, had never traded down in the draft before, but then he did to get Skye Moore. And the way it worked out could not have been better for Kansas City. The Chiefs were at 50, they moved back 4 picks with New England, and they still ended up getting maybe the best fit for their offense. The Patriots went completely out of nowhere when they swooped in and took Tyquan Thornton out of Baylor. George Pickens, who a lot of fans for a lot of teams wanted, ends up going 52nd to Pittsburgh, but Skye Moore, after those 4 picks passed, was still there for Kansas City. He's a good fit for this offense, at least on paper. You love his 4.4 speed. You like his playmaking ability. It's a good fit for a rebuilt wide receiver room. And again, it's great value when you were able to move back 4 spots and still possibly get the guy you wanted in the first place. And frankly, even if Moore had gone somewhere between 50 and 53, maybe that means George Pickens ends up there at 54. The Chiefs would have been okay anyway. So the process of going back 4 spots and still getting your guy, another home run for the Chiefs. Then we get to my favorite value pick, not just for the Chiefs, but maybe for the entire draft, in Darian Kinnard, the offensive lineman from Kentucky, a consensus first team All-American from Kentucky, just the 12th time that has ever happened in the history of Wildcats football. He comes to Kansas City as a player who I thought would go on day 2. When we did our day 2 mock drafts on 580 Sports Talk this past Friday, I said the Chiefs could get him at the end of the 3rd round, and that would be a home run draft pick. I thought that might be one of their best picks of the whole draft, to get Kinnard in the 3rd round. He somehow slides all the way to the early 5th. The Chiefs trade back up following that trend, and they go and get Kinnard, who is going to give you plenty of versatility on the offensive line. He played tackle where he was an All-American in college. He projects size-wise more as a guard in the NFL. But either way, if you want to keep him outside, he's your swing tackle. If you want to keep him inside, he's your 3rd guard for now, possibly a future starter as well. And when we're talking about tackles specifically, we don't know what the future long-term is going to look like for Orlando Brown. At this point, we don't know what the future long-term is going to look like for Lucas Niang. You bring Kinnard in, he's depth, possibly a future starter, and I think a 3rd round, maybe late 2nd round caliber of player, caliber of talent who you got in the 5th. So if you're talking best value of the entire NFL draft, I think the Chiefs got it with Darian Kinnard in round number 5. Of course, for all the favorites, there also has to be a least favorite. And while I don't think Leo Chenal from Wisconsin is a bad player, I don't really understand the fit with the Kansas City Chiefs. He is a very downhill player. He is at his best when he can be extremely aggressive, going downhill, blitz-heavy situations, and he is a thumper. He is going to rock you when he gets his shoulders down, gets his head down, and lays into your chest. He is a solid player, and he's a freak athlete. Relative athletic score from Kent Lee Platt, you can find that online for every player in this draft who tested and was eligible for it. He tested a 9.99 out of 10. In layman's terms, he is an athletic alien. His testing numbers were sensational, but I don't really understand his fit, one, in terms of his style for this Chiefs defense, and I also don't really understand it based on the fact the Chiefs already have their 2 starting linebackers for their 4-2-5 nickel-based defense. It's Willie Gay and it's Nick Bolton, who I thought got better and better over the course of his rookie season in 2021. Chenal's going to have a place. You would imagine he's essentially the replacement for Ben Neiman, but does it really make sense to use a 3rd-round pick on your backup linebacker? It doesn't seem like a great fit to me. He should be a special teams contributor immediately, which is also a nice saving grace. And again, he's not a bad player. I just don't know if I love the fit he has with the Chiefs. I think my favorite part of this draft for the Chiefs is the fact that they were able to completely restock their cornerbacks room. They went into the draft with 3 cornerbacks. That's right, DeAndre Baker, Rashad Fenton, and L'Jarius Sneed. That was it for this year, for the future, pretty much no depth at all. So Brett Veach and Andy Reid and the rest of the front office and the personnel department for the Chiefs decided to go out and make sure that was a priority. And I love the fact that they did that. As we mentioned, they got a day one starter in Trent McDuffie who can start on the outside with Fenton while L'Jarius Sneed stays in the slot. Perfect fit for the Steve Spagnuolo defense. They go and get Joshua Williams, another athletic player, a Division II player out of Fayetteville State. That's a very Brett Veach pick in the 4th round, but it's more depth. And then they take a flyer on another corner in the 7th round as well, Jalen Watson from Washington State, the former Cougar. So you add plenty of depth. You doubled the size of your cornerback room just in the draft through 7 rounds. I love that approach. The Chiefs desperately needed to address it. They got good talent. I think they took a smart flyer on Watson, who's got high upside, at least as a special teams player. Love those decisions by the Kansas City Chiefs. The area where I do have some concerns post-draft, I don't think they did enough on the defensive line. Getting George Karlaftis out of Purdue in the 1st round, awesome. You had to get another edge rusher. You didn't have to move to get him either. You were able to take him at number 30. Now, some projections say he might not ever be a great pass rusher in the NFL, maybe doesn't have those traits. Can he essentially give you what Frank Clark has given you, but do it at a far lower price point? If so, that's already a win for the Chiefs, but I think there's potential to be even better than that. At least we would all hope so. But beyond that, it just wasn't addressed nearly enough. The Chiefs spent half of their draft picks on defensive backs, 3 corners and 2 safeties out of their 10 picks. I think they could have done more to address that defensive line, even a flyer in the 7th round when they took a corner, a safety, and then a running back, Isaiah Pacheco out of Rutgers. I thought they could have done more to address the edge or even the interior of the line, such as maybe finding a future replacement for Derek Nottie, who's under now a 1-year contract coming back this offseason with the Kansas City Chiefs. That's really the only blemish, though, I see. Maybe one pick that I don't think is a great fit, maybe one area I think they could have addressed more. But overall, if you're really hankering for a letter grade for this draft, put me somewhere between a B+ and an A- for the Kansas City Chiefs. I love the value they got with these picks. Maybe it's not always the most talented player on the board, but they addressed needs. They addressed them in some positions in big ways. They got a weapon for Patrick Mahomes, who I think he is really going to enjoy as a speedy safety blanket in the short to intermediate parts of the field. Overwhelmingly, I think this was a positive draft that maybe has a few blemishes here or there. This was a draft the Kansas City Chiefs absolutely had to hit on. And while we don't know for sure, and probably won't for 2 or 3 years, know if this draft was actually a success, when you grade by need, when you grade by process, obviously the returns, at least at the start, very positive for Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Brett Veach, and the rest of the Chiefs franchise.